Today we're taking a tabletop look at two of Colt's Navy revolvers, the 1851 Navy and the 1861 Navy. I'm Dustin and you're watching Guns of the West. One of my main goals in making this video is to help those who are new to black powder revolvers and maybe those who are searching for their first to identify the similarities and differences between the 1851 Navy and the 1861 Navy, and also provide maybe just a little bit of history for you too. Now, the 1851 Navy came out, when it was first released, it was sort of over a span of 1850 to 1851, and at first made just in America, but the American version would have looked like this, with brass trigger guard and grip frame, brass backstrap. What you see here on the workbench is an example of the London model. These were made in London. Now, of course, these here on the table both are reproductions from Uberti made in Italy, but what I mean is the Colts, they were made in America and London. London had the blued steel, front and back. And on the 1861 Navy, all the photos of originals I've seen had the brass, like the American-made 51 Navy. This one has blue, but I'm not going to call that a London because the London factory operated from 1853 to 1857. So when this one came out, over the span of 1860-61, it was then outside of that window. Now, let's go over, just sort of from back to front, similarities and differences. They both have the same grips, just a nice one-piece grip. Although one thing that I find interesting, 51 obviously came out first and had this grip on it. And then the 1860 Army, when it came out, here's an example of that. And it has a much longer grip. And some people have told me in other comments on videos of this gun that they really like that. I like it too, but I do prefer the original grip here on the 1851 Navy. And the part that I find interesting is Colt went back to that for the 1861. And just to give a real close side by side, you can see there's quite a difference between those two sizes. Now, moving forward, these have the same trigger guard, although again, these would have been made in brass, and so would these. I wouldn't say these were never made in blued steel. Seems every time I say never, somebody finds an example, but typically brass. Frame is exactly the same on both guns, although this 1861 Navy is cut right here for a shoulder stock, and at the bottom of the back strap for a shoulder stock. It also has the screw for that. Now, that would not have been typical. This was available, as I read in the book A History of the Colt Revolver by Haven and Belden. It was available, cut that way as a special order, but typically would have the frame that you see here without those cuts and without the cut down here. The cylinders, exactly the same, and they both have the Naval Battle of Campeche engraving on them. Both 36 caliber, both the same hammers. Now, as we get up to the fronts of the frame, here is where we'll start to see some differences. Both feature a 7.5-inch barrel, but the 1851 Navy has the octagonal barrel that I really like, and just sort of a bead front sight, whereas the 1861 Navy has the rounded barrel, just like the 1860 Army, although the 1860 Army is an 8-inch barrel, which you can easily see by how far it sticks out past the loading lever. And just to give you a quick side-by-side, you can see the difference in length there. So the Army, 8-inch barrel. Navies are both 7.5-inch barrels. The loading levers are another difference. The 1851 Navy is a loading lever that you're familiar with on a lot of the black powder revolvers. It just hinges on a screw right here on the bottom of the barrel assembly, whereas the 1861 Navy has the rack and pinion system, just like the 1860 Army, except again being for a 36 caliber. And I actually really like the smoothness of the way that operates. Moving forward again, this one has a blade front sight, unlike the bead sight that I showed on the 51 Navy. Now, as far as making a selection, if I were to make a recommendation, it would really be hard to do. I don't see a lot of difference in shooting them. They seem to shoot really the same. I can't really tell not any substantial difference anyway. Accuracy seems to be the same. They both shoot high, like most Colt revolvers do from the time period. So it really, I think, is going to come down to, if you had to choose between these, which one do you like the look of better? That's the main difference. Function, again, is the same. It's really a cosmetic difference. I really like the octagonal barrel on this one, especially on the London, because I like the blued steel back here and back here more than I like the brass. Although the brass is pretty in its own way. So do you like that, or do you like the nice, sleek, rounded barrel? Now, if you want Samuel Colt's opinion, he himself said that this 1861 Navy was the most beautiful revolver he ever made. Let me know down in the comments below what you think. I tend to lean, when it comes to the Navy revolvers, not for everything, but for the Navies, I like that octagonal barrel, so I would probably lean to the 51. A lot of you are probably going to say you really like that 61, and a lot of people like the 1860 Army, and so this would be very appealing. Just one other little historical note about them. As I mentioned, this one came out 1850, 1851 versus this one 1860, 61. So this one was a decade earlier. Both were made right up to 1872. But still remained in use well into the metallic cartridge gun age. And an interesting thing, as I said, Colt said this one was the most beautiful, but this one was always the better seller. Even after this one came out, people really gravitate to that one. So again, I'm really anxious to hear, or at least read rather, what you all think in the comments. I really hope this little tabletop overview today was helpful for some of you, and maybe even just interesting for others. Please don't forget to click that like button down below and subscribe to the channel so you can see more videos. And if you look in the description, you'll see where to find me on social media and where to find great Guns of the West products like the very popular paper cartridge kit that goes well with your revolvers. Thank you so much for watching.